Welcome to the Still Rolling podcast. I'm Matthew Montgomery. I'm your host. Today I'm joined by Mitch Potterf. He's a training partner of mine. He's a fellow blue belt. We get rounds in regularly with one another. He has a background in wrestling. He owns a CrossFit box, and he's joining us here for a little conversation about what it's like to be on the mats as a gray beard, but also when you have a background already in grappling and other fitness as an athlete and as a coach. Mitch, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So you came up as a wrestler, right? You in the Westerville area.
Yeah. So pretty much been in Westerville most of my life since I was 4. Went away to college, lived someplace else for a while, but came back. I started wrestling in about 6th grade. Basically got in a fight, sitting in the principal's office, and the wrestling coach walked in, and the secretary said, "You'll like this one. He likes to fight." I got invited to wrestling practice. I completely got my ass kicked all over the place. And I went home, and I was so happy I didn't have to go home and get in trouble. So that was back in like the 80s when kids could just wander the earth without checking in or anything. And I went home, and my dad got home. I was like, what's wrestling? And he was excited about that. And then I went back the next day, and turns out it was like one of the last days I wasn't allowed to be in there, 6th grade. So then I went to, I think my dad took me to a tournament or 2 or something after that. And then in 7th grade, I really got to wrestle. And that was kind of when I got the bug for good. I wasn't any good at all. But I progressed. I think part of that was I didn't really compete. I was just allowed to be a practice room piece of meat. Now I think I've since coached a lot. I think a lot of parents want their kid to compete. They want that picture, and I won't necessarily think that's the best thing for a lot of the kids right away. But anyway, and then I went on high school and was pretty good, and it was kind of in me, but I just kind of wasn't. I don't think I was mature enough for college, to be honest, and wasn't. I just didn't figure that out. So I got into fitness a lot. I was always working out for wrestling, and that's kind of when I would say once wrestling was over for me. I was still coaching. I started coaching at the high school at a very young age. I was coaching all through college, and it's kind of always, that's kind of how you stay on the mat. I think wrestling's a lot different than jiu-jitsu in that there's not clubs for old guys to go keep working on their skills for fun. It's you go until you're no longer competing relevantly at the highest level, and then you're done.
Yeah.
And I do remember Gracie opening up. This would have been when I was in college, and it was just I had kind of I'd always wanted to do it, but I was busy with wrestling, busy with college, busy with jobs and stuff. So I started lifting weights in high school for wrestling, and then that kind of became like my life's pursuit in college. That wasn't much for school, and that was kind of what I figured out was the textbooks I would buy with my book money. I ended up buying exercise science textbooks before I was allowed to take the classes because that's what I was into. And I realized, hey man, I haven't ever wanted to read too many books my whole life. I wasn't the best student in high school, and I'm buying books, people talking about fit, all kinds of stuff. And I was like, okay, so this is how you get strong. And that was kind of for a good bit of time, that was kind of my obsession, was how to get strong. But I also liked a lot of different things. So I think my first gym job, I was in a World's gym on the east side. It was all powerlifters and bodybuilders. You can be a little bit different than now, but at 220 pounds, I was a pipsqueak. And so I'd lift with the powerlifters, I'd do some of the bodybuilding stuff, but I just didn't really like leaving my athletics behind. So I got into outdoor sports a lot. I did a lot of mountain biking, rock climbing, hiking, and mountaineering and kayaking and all that different adventure sports stuff. That led me kind of to OU. I finished up my degree in that stuff and did a lot of that and still worked out. But I can really remember a couple little distinct times before I actually had a CrossFit gym. My powerlifting buddies would say, you got to quit doing all the cardio on the bike. It's going to make you weak. You know what I mean? And I was like, yeah, but then I can't ride a mountain bike. Like, what good is your, you know what I mean? Like, I can't ride, or they would say, why you got to do push-ups and pull-ups so much? Do bench. And I was like,
functional strength.
Because I'm a grown man. I do push-ups. What are you talking about? It's this weird thing. And then all my like outdoor kind of hippie mountain bike kayaking buddies were like, "Why are you lifting all those weights, man? You'd be better if you were." It's like, whatever, I do my thing. And then I was working out with some buddies in my parents' garage, and I literally remember we were back squatting and running. I want to see if you could. We thought it would be funny to see if you could run after squatting a lot of weight. Nobody did that. We just, or at least nobody we saw. None of the books
Right.
we read. It wasn't internet or anything. So we did it, and we dropped weights. There wasn't bumper plates. We dropped steel weights, and I was like, "Oh, my dad's gonna be mad if I smashed the garage floor." And my buddy started throwing up, and I thought to myself, "You are never gonna make a living working out till you puke on a dirty garage floor." And as it turns out, that's probably the only way I've ever made a living.
Kind of how
But anyway,
it's marketed, isn't it?
yeah, well, yeah, a little bit. I mean, I think we've gone around a lot of circles with marketing with CrossFit, but I think at the heart of it, it's just good fitness for people. There's the
Yeah.
games, and there's the competitive stuff, and there's the stuff people focus on. Um, but for a CrossFitter we can talk about self-defense and jujitsu, but you know, I remember when I first uh, was at Gracie, and there was a older woman that wanted to see if she could, like, if I was on my hands and knees, if she could like choke me, because she was trying to figure out what we were teaching.
Yeah.
I let her, and I just I was new. I don't even think I had any stripes. I was, I was overweight for the first time in my adult life. I had this crazy mullet haircut, and whatever. I was just loving every morning at 6 a.m. because I could fight some people or whatever.
Yeah.
And I said to her, I go, "If you can ever climb on top of a 240-pound man, you should run. That's a better self-defense item." And she laughed. She's like, "Oh, I couldn't run that far." And I'm like, "Well, then what do you think? You know what I mean? Like, that's your first. You don't need to be there. You know what I mean?" And I think a lot of times people don't. They think of self-defense as all this stuff here, and grappling, and concealed carry. I'm like, the chronic disease and the boogeyman that is all the buckets of death that are getting us as we age: obesity, diabetes, heart disease, high blood pressure. That's going to get you a lot more than the kid you think on the street's going to wants your wallet. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. If we had as many
and-
people dying from robberies as we do from heart disease, that would
yeah,
be an interesting night on the news.
we don't have charities raise money so people can get jujitsu because people are old man are getting robbed. I mean, sometimes I love the self-defense aspect of it. It's really
Yeah.
a cool, I guess, avenue for me to go down, because for me, wrestling has always been points and winning and whatever. And then one of the revelations I really had, kind of my first couple months of jujitsu, was like the first time some of my old wrestlers or somebody that was a wrestler came in. I was like, wow, I taught some really violent stuff. My guys are probably all right if they just don't do this or don't do that.
Yeah.
And I wasn't teaching it from a self-defense standpoint. Sometime I would, just to kind of get kids' attention, you'll be like, all right, and if you go like that, he can't breathe. And they're like, what?
Yeah.
Especially now in the MMA world, that really gets to pay attention, but you can't do that in wrestling.
Well, I think there's an eternal argument in jiu-jitsu circles, at least on the internet, about sport versus self-defense. And, people like, oh, jiu-jitsu, it's sport, it's self, one or the other. And I think it's both. I think, Gracie, Ohio, obviously we have our combatives and we keep a self-defense focus. We also do all right in tournaments, and,
Yeah.
and I would say that somebody that's only training sport, if they're going up against, if they got into a fight one-on-one and no guns and no weapons and you can't run,
Yeah.
against an untrained person, they're going to do fine as well.
Yeah.
So
I like the valet tudo classes we've had lately. I find sometimes, I think when I get into the more I guess the guard aspects of jujitsu, which is probably definitely my weakest point, I get frustrated. And then when we go there, I was like, well, I don't want to hit people, but just realizing, hey, I'm good. Like, I'm pretty safe. Like, if somebody comes and they can't stand to do takedowns or whatever, or they're not, I'm going to be all right. Like, I'll be able to get down. I can get you down. I can throw you down. I can walk away. I can hold people down that are not, um, that I would think are more capable of kind of just like hurting me. Right. Like,
yeah,
and it changes the whole thing. You're like, well, you got to think about getting hit. That's a
Yeah.
little different.
I mean, when I'm training, if I'm in a spot where I'm, hanging on to somebody and maybe they're just super turtled and, holding everything inside, sometimes I'll just tap them on the forehead a little bit to remind them, hey, you can still get hit, dummy.
Yeah.
And actually this weekend we had Pedro Valenche did a seminar, and he talked about, kind of a seated up open guard. And he took whoever, I think it was Robin, sitting in the seated open guard, and Pedro kind of took a half step back and then basically kicked him in the face. Didn't actually kick him, but he was like,
Yeah. Yeah.
this is why I don't play that.
Yeah. I think, yeah, I, I think, but also I like learning new stuff, right? It is,
Hmm.
I do really like the sport.
Yeah.
It's like, I feel like I'm a kid again, you know, it helps focus my other training. And I like to compete. I've, one of the kind of things I took from, my last competition was just, I was getting, well, a couple of the last competitions, I was getting anxious, I was getting nerves.
Hmm.
And I remember my son gets to sit in my corner. That's kind of like, that's my thing, right? Like we're doing the same thing we were doing since he was a kid. But, he said, man, I kind of like this where I get to drink and eat food and you get nervous.
Yeah.
And after that, the next tournament, I realized, okay, a lot of this was anxiety. I need to learn how to deal with it. What a great way to learn how to process that, because it's not like our lives are not going to give that to us. And, and I just reflected. I was like, man, if I'd have been training jujitsu all this time, just simply so I could compete, this would have made me such a better coach, not just, um, in wrestling, but I kind of have two aspects of CrossFit I coach. I coach competitive CrossFitters, or at least I have.
Hmm.
And that's everything from the highest stage to just local hero stuff, and regular people that are just trying to make it through their life and be fit and have a place they go, just like we kind of go to jiu-jitsu. CrossFitters are going to a gym. These are their friends. These are buddies. These are people that know when they're up, know when they're down, and go, hey man, why aren't you there? You know what I mean? And I think what's been nice for me, I have that. I have two gym communities, but I'm always a little different. I'm not in it as
Yeah.
much. You know what I mean? It's kind of like there's some, to a certain degree, there's an old thing about cheers. Everybody wants to go where everybody knows your name. Well, sometimes you want to go where nobody knows your name, and
Yeah.
you just want to kind of, you know, meet some new people, or go where, there's not so much expectation. You know what I mean? Like I got to
Sure.
solve every problem in those gyms. Maybe I don't. My
Well,
friends are probably going to reach out and go, Mitch, you don't have to solve our problems. We love you. Bye. But anyway,
and that could be, and
yeah, yeah,
I guess sometimes, obviously people, we're always hardest, you know, you are harder on yourself than anybody's going to be
yeah,
on
yeah,
you.
yeah.
Um, and but I guess if you're CrossFit coach, there's an expectation of knowledge, just like if we have an expectation of knowledge among, for black belts, that certain things, and you have certain ability and those kinds of things. But some of those abilities start to fade as we get older and less agile
Yeah,
and more
yeah. Well,
broken.
I saw that this weekend. I was lucky enough to coach, one of my friends in the, Masters CrossFit Games. So this is the CrossFit Games for people, 35 and up. Every 5 years, there's a new division on up to 70 plus. My friend Shelly Aiden, she's 60 years old, and it's amazing what these people can do. I mean, I watched a 70-year-old guy dust a 14-year-old on a run, on a 5K run, literally just blow by him. Like it was insane to me, and it's a lot of other really amazing stuff. And it's a mix of people who've been pursuing it as sport, which I think is good in a lot of ways, and a lot of people who are just kind of pursuing it as a pastime, and because they've always been very active, and they just happen to be 70 years old, and they found CrossFit a couple of years ago. It's a new thing to compete, no different than I'm like 52 years old. And I'm like, oh, I guess I'll do jujitsu. I'll
Yeah.
compete in that. You know what I mean? Like,
Well, you get to fill that little bug, right? You said already, if you're a wrestler, once you're done with high school or
yeah.
college, and that's it. There are not. I mean, I guess Pursuit is down the way, but do they have adult wrestling? And
No, no,
you
it's
know,
really, I think, cost prohibitive. It's very difficult to get insurance. Like, I don't
oh
know, like, and I'm not 100% sure on that. I just remember in the early days of starting CrossFit, no insurance company knew what we were.
Right.
So there was insurance for like wrestling, boxing, jiu-jitsu, MMA, step aerobics and everything. And we had to kind of, or at least I did, had this kind of amalgamation. And it was like, I think my friend said it best. He's an insurance agent. He goes, Mitch, you guys are flipping tires and lifting rocks. Actuaries don't have numbers on that stuff. They don't know how to
Right.
do it. So we did MMA, and I seem to remember the highest like insurance rate, like the thing that seemed like they least wanted to cover was boxing.
Okay.
And then wrestling was not coverable for adults. Like if I wanted to start a wrestling club in my warehouse along with
No
my CrossFit,
insurance.
they were not insuring it. Now I don't know if that's different. I started CrossFit Gym in 2008, and we now have our own, they know who we are, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
We all know what CrossFit is. I don't have to say, no, I'm not a pastor.
Right.
I'm a coach. I'm a strength coach. We're doing fitness. It's, it's kind of spiritual, but
Yeah.
it's, but yeah, so now it's a little bit different. So I haven't had to look at those things. I do know, for some of the wrestling clubs, Pursuit's a great club. I mean, they're training kids. It's a kids game. It's a youth, middle school, high school game. And then, when they get into college, those end up being, the kids that come back and do camps and clinics or pursue their own thing, or hopefully they get to go as far as they want.
Yeah. And, I think a lot of wrestlers, I think jiu-jitsu is appreciated. I think MMA is at least opened a door where there are wrestlers that can kind of get into another
Definitely.
thing where you can be physical and compete.
I think the two things I've noticed is I haven't really been an MMA fan for a while, but I'm getting into it, is number one, just the sheer fact that you cannot keep wrestling unless you are a very good athlete, right?
Yeah.
People might think, I mean, we've got guys on our Olympic team. You go, oh, that guy could step on a bodybuilder stage, and they ain't lifting weight. They're from Pluto or where, I don't know, but they are just different.
Yeah.
And so I think that kind of pre-sorts. So even if you're not the best college wrestler, if you're able to wrestle in college, that's definite black belt stuff. There's not many of you, right?
Right.
When you go into another setting where half the people have never really competed at the level, it's probably two reasons. They haven't figured out how to work that hard and get things, and they may not be a Ferrari, they may be a Civic, as I say.
Right.
I think there's a lot of great souped up Civics, but it's kind of like
there's only so much you can bore out the cylinders.
I like to say I wrestled. I couldn't play basketball because, as it turns out, if you're not tall, you're not fast, you can't jump, you can't shoot, and you're slow, you're not going to make it to the NBA. I'm just not a good enough athlete in that way, right?
Right.
And I think it's similar when you get onto on that. So that's why a lot of the wrestlers transition. And then what I've learned lately more as I kind of get more into the jiu-jitsu side, you just realize being able to hold a person down against their will, whether it be on their back or their chest, or not to get away because it's a takedown, just the simple rules of wrestling. If you learn how to do that, you're going to be really effective because you're going to have a lot of time to figure out, do I bend your arm this way? Do I bend your arm this way? Do I do this? And I can just put pressure on you, and you're just going to get real tired.
Well, and that's why every jiu-jitsu guy, has a conversation about, when the wrestler comes into the room, especially on a no-gi day. All the wrestlers want to come to no-gi. They shy away from the gi.
Because grabbing clothes is cheating.
I know. I know that when you and I go rounds, if we're in the gi, I'm a whole lot more confident facing Mitch than when we're no gi. When we're no gi, I'm like, God, I got to be careful here. Okay.
Yeah.
How do you
think it improves the no-gi stuff though? And when I was raising my son, there was a time when he was interested in jiu-jitsu, and he was interested in everything. He could do anything, but I didn't do it. And I was worried about him learning to go to his back. And now I look at it like, no, man, that would have been the best thing in the world. You know what I mean? Like, I think they complement each other more than they antagonize, or, you know what I mean? Whatever the analogy is.
No, they're cousins, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's grappling. I think as far as the gi, no gi, one of my old coaches, Scott Tomet's out in Idaho. We'd bug him. We'd be like, when are we going to go no gi? When are we going to go no gi? Because we were always in the gi. And he was a wrestler. He, very good wrestler. And he said, well, you are doing no gi, just in the gi. So, okay.
I mean, That's honestly kind of how I think of it. I think, we had a regular class that was Nogi for a while. And I really enjoyed it. And we had like kind of a good group,
Mm-hmm.
and I enjoyed it for a couple of reasons. I guess I'm a little better at that. And it was very wrestling focused, but it also kind of helped me learn a little bit more. And I appreciated watching kind of the pros more. And then we changed it to gi. And so people were mad. I was like, man, I'll be honest. I've had wrestling practice in more clothes than a gi ever was. So this is not really that big a deal. We go to wrestling practice. Sometimes, I mean, we used to cut weight the dumbest way in the world in the 80s and 90s. I have 3
Mm-hmm.
sweatshirts on. Just
Yeah.
don't grab my clothes. It's that easy. You know what I mean? Like if you want to do no gi, just don't grab my collar. Don't grab it. So
Bingo.
it's pretty simple.
Yeah, it is. And in fact,
And yeah,
no, when we go
when
nogi and somebody's wearing pants, I tell you what, I smack my own head because I'll grab
yeah,
some knee material and oh shit, okay, let me
I
go.
think what I'm picking up now though, because there's a couple nogi tournaments I want to kind of prepare for. So at first I was having a hard time finding the nogi, not finding the classes, but making it fit with my kind of new crazy schedule. Um, and then I was like, no, man, you got to train when you got to train. And when I start kind of researching a little bit and listening to some of the people at the academy or stuff I see online, stuff like podcasts like this and stuff, you realize the gi makes you be more disciplined with your positions. And if they can't grab your clothes, like if they can't grab your sleeve or your legs or your collars, you're in good position.
That's a good
And
way to
that
put it.
position is no worse in no-gi. So, or in wrestling or in the street. And, Robin likes to say, naked man never walked up to me in the street and picked a fight, you know what I mean? Or some version of
Yeah.
that, you know what I mean? Like people are going to have clothes on. I mean, it does make sense from
Yeah.
a self-defense standpoint. And I do appreciate that because I think, I'm a 200-pound old man walking the streets. I don't think many people are going to pick a fight with me.
No,
I don't think I'm getting in a bar fight. You know what I mean? Um, but
I'd have to be in a bar to get into a bar fight.
this is true. I was in a couple this weekend because of the event, and I was like, "This is crazy. Why is it so loud in here?" They're like, "It's not loud at all." I'm like, "It's too loud. My couch is not loud. It's not loud." But you just realize, but learning this stuff and learning a little gentler way to do it, that I think from a self defense part, that my part in wrestling is like, man, I can stop you, but I got to really hurt you. There's, you know what I mean? It's kind of like, yeah, if you're on your feet and you're coming at me, it's pretty good. I don't think sitting on my butt is going to be my strategy. But I mean, we tell them, hit them with the earth.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like, don't, I think I saw a judo thing. It's like nothing hits harder than the planet, like,
Yeah.
and that's cool, but that's not like, that's maybe, maybe he's just a nice guy that's going crazy. He's not on his meds, or do you really, you know what I mean? I think in coaching, you start realizing some of the better kids, you have to say, man, you cannot do this with your buddies. Your buddy that
Right.
plays team does not understand. You cannot throw him. You throw him on the grass, he's going to get hurt. You throw him on the concrete, your life's going to be different. We might be visiting you somewhere else on accident.
Yeah. I mean,
Um,
shit. Look at what just happened with Rampage's son. Did you see
I
any of
didn't see
that the
that.
last day or two?
No,
I
no.
mean, so he was doing some sort of like a hardcore wrestling thing, and the backstage, one of the other wrestlers did something that made him mad, and they apologized. They made up. They were good, and then Rampage's son, I think his name is Raja, went in and slammed the wrestler in the ring, so it looked like it was part of a work, and then he knocked him out with the slam, and then 20 full force shots before anybody got him off of the guy. And thank God the guy
Right.
lived. But I mean, that kid's going to prison.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, it's people don't, and some of that might be, man, he didn't understand, dude. Your dad was a UFC champion. You probably are pretty physically capable.
oh,
This guy may
absolutely.
not, you may have been a Mack truck going against,
Yeah.
a Volkswagen Bug. And it doesn't matter how plucky or how much technique you have. I say, nobody uses technique in the gorilla pen. You know what I mean?
No.
Nobody, you're not going to pull guard on the gorilla. You're just going to run.
Yeah. Well, and that's I mean, that's the key. Like I've seen it said so many times, running is your best possible self-defense. I mean, I've heard, we said it here at the very beginning of this. I heard Jocko talk about that's his go-to, run away. Now, if I can't run away from you for some reason, you know, you're a faster runner or whatever, you get a hold of me now. Okay, now that's a different conversation. Um, but yeah, you can't be just getting into fights. How do you balance being a CrossFit coach and owner with also training jujitsu? Do you
Well,
get
I
in when you
think
can, or is it other you have specific
with
splits where you
both.
manage your
Well, I think, there's a couple different aspects of that. So there's the personal kind of coach side of me, which loves to create training programs and figure out how to solve the puzzle, right? So part of that with me is trying to figure out. It's one of the reasons I like to compete. It's like, okay, I got this event out in the window. What can I do here so that I'm optimal there? How do I, and figuring out what that is with, I think a pretty fit, but it's a 52-year-old body. I got mileage on it. I've been doing dumb stuff like this for 52 years. My
yeah
knees kind of look alien like. I think there's several doctors that look, they still work just fine. But there's like this morning, there's a doctor that looked at it, I was like, "Well, that I've never seen that."
yeah
But but I feel pretty good. I mean, one of my little physical things I noticed from shifting more of my workouts, they're, well, as of late, they've been in a gym with a barbell. But if things are going my way, preparing for jiu-jitsu, I'm trying to get 3 or 4 rolls in a week. I'll try and do a double day just because I think once or twice it's good to kind of feel what my body will feel like over
hmm
prolonged matches. Generally, I only get 1 or 2, but I like to prepare for the best. And then I'll do some lifting a couple of the days, and I try and do a couple of days of CrossFit. I've done a lot of stuff, right?
yeah
So things that work for me, and the dosage, I think, is a better way to go about it, is a better way to think about it. That work for me may not be optimal for everybody. That's not because I'm super special. It's because we're all kind of super special. We all have a different, you know, set of mileage on me. I've had high school kids pulling on my head like this for a long time. I maybe don't need to do a whole lot of those things to help.
yeah
I've lifted a lot of weight. I've put a lot of weight on my back. I've put a lot of mileage on my knees. I put a lot of mileage on my low back and my shoulders. And some of the value or the wisdom, I'd like to tell people, these don't come for free, man. You can't
yeah
just buy them. These all are different pains, all these white hairs. But you realize, okay, if I were to compete at powerlifting, none of those guys I see in the gym who've done it back then or whatever, they don't seem to look or feel or move too good.
no
Right. And so, and when I lift really heavy, I'm never going to be what I once was. So even if I PR this, I'm not like, woohoo. I'm like, that's 300 pounds. What's that? That's nothing. Right.
yeah
And I'm not trying to brag. That's not where it is. But I now have kind of rules where I just don't put certain loads on my back because it takes me a lot longer to warm up for that. And it takes me a lot longer to kind of properly cool down from that.
hmm
I recently kind of broke my rule and kind of I learned, yeah, you shouldn't break that rule. Um, I don't. I still deadlift. I still clean and jerk. I still snatch. I still do stuff, but I don't. I just kind of modify that, and I don't take bad reps. You're never supposed to, but at a certain age, it's not that costly. When you're 25, 30, 35 years old, it's not that big a deal to kind of pull your shoulder a little weird. It's not, you're going to recover quicker. It's harder. And now a lot of the recovery, like when I kind of hurt my back, when I violated my back rule, um, it kind of cost me some workouts. It cost me about 2 weeks of what I would say productive workouts. And it was mostly like just trying to get this thing going on. So I was feeling better. So I think dosage is what's important. I think a lot of people think they need something special. Oh, I need this program is built for grapplers or whatever. And I think most people are most people need to get generally fit before they worry about getting specifically fit for anything. Most of the
hmm
people I see in jiu-jitsu that get hurt, whether they be young or old, or are trying to do things, and we all know for the first couple of years, it's a great exercise and weight loss because no matter what you do, you're terrified, you're always fighting, you're always scrapping, and then it starts to slow down. And then you're not really going to sweat if you don't have to, because that's kind of not the point. It's not that the point isn't to work out and sweat, but we're just hobbyists. The point isn't to try and see if we can make it as hard as possible. It's trying to see how easy we can make it.
Right.
And people are like, oh, I need this program or this program. I do this. And it's like, you just need to be generally fit. Every human being should be able to run a mile. Every human being should be able to do pull-ups and push-ups. And you should be able to lift your body weight up off the floor, or at least the weight of your loved ones. And
Yeah.
a human body wiggles and moves a lot different. So it's just a lot easier to put 300 pounds on a barbell than to try and see if you can pick up a 150-pound kid. You know what I mean? Like,
Yep.
it's a better way of getting stronger, and it keeps you healthy, and it makes people who compete against you not like it so much, right? When you're
Yeah.
healthy, stronger. And I think CrossFit is just a good general fitness program, right? We teach you how to lift. We teach you running and cardio stuff. We teach you body weight stuff. We focus on mobility. And then probably, and this is more what I'm seeing now, is there's a community. And in some cases, it's really like family, man. I mean, the woman I helped over the weekend, she's like a sister from a different mister for me now. Like, and we started off her not able to do pull-ups in the dirty garage, right? And she said, I had no reason to trust you. I just did. And look what
Yeah.
happened. Now, I mean, you can
Wow.
look her up later, but she's clearly, and she's out there competing at 60 years old, doing ring muscle ups in front of her granddaughters and her grandsons and her daughters and her husband and her cousins, and they're all coming. And people think it's the genetics or they think it's the training. And like, no, man, it's those people. That's why she's that fit.
It's hard work.
It's the, I kind of had some things, and friend had to get in my face, and I was like, you know what? I owe my kids more than this.
Yeah.
So I got to back off the crazy and kind of take some advice and not try and pretend like I got a 25-year-old back and realize I got a 52-year-old back. I might have a 55-year-old back, frankly, but it's been in my body for 52 years. But so I think balance for everything is, I'm maybe not the guy to talk about balance, because I'm kind of this balance in the fitness regard. But I think most practitioners I see, and I don't know if this is the question, would just be served by better general fitness. And you can figure that on your own. You can go to any old CrossFit gym and you can do it. And sometimes, unfortunately, finances can be the barrier, but we spend a lot of money hurting ourselves. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
this is iced tea and some electrolytes. It looks like it's a beer. There's nobody, I'm not trying to bash against drinking or smoking or whatever, but there's a reason why the life insurance companies want to ask you that question.
100%. Right.
And the same as with food. And you don't have to be, what I've noticed, my diet's a little bit different than it used to be. Some things are good. If I work out hard, I can eat more of certain foods. If I don't, I have to keep it pretty lean, and some things mess with my stomach and that'll throw everything out of whack, and some things don't. So I focus on those things. And you don't have to be super strict and have everything perfect. You just kind of got to keep trying to get 3 yards. You know what I mean? If every down you get 3 yards, man, you're gonna win more than you lose.
That's, just a little bit better every day. 6 months ago, I think I weighed in at, I was 270 pounds about 6 months ago. The only things I changed is I got more consistent, more classes in jiu-jitsu a week, altered my diet a little bit, almost cut alcohol out completely, and I'm down 30 pounds in like the last 5 months.
That's great, man. That's great.
And I'm going to keep going. If I can get down to where I could weigh in at like a 215 in March, I might do the Arnold this year.
Cool.
I saw you did the Arnold. Are you going to do the Arnold again?
I might, man. I just spent 4 days in the convention center. It was like a 4-day, 18-hour rock concert. My head is ringing. I might not need to go to that place for a couple months, but yeah, the Arnold's
today's
fun.
not the day to ask if you want to go back to the convention center and
the
sweat.
Arnold's fine. The Jiu-Jitsu was fine. It was a nice quiet ballroom.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think so. There's almost got a Charlie horse there. Sorry about that.
That's
you gotta
okay.
drink your electrolytes or you'll cramp.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, the Arnold's fun. It's good. I think some of the things, there's so many local tournaments. Same as through CrossFit. What I realized kind of going to them is, I kind of miss this. You know what I mean? Like I hosted a big event for years, and it was a blast, but it caused a lot of stress in my life. So I kind of put it down for a little bit and kind of stepped away. But as I go to all of them, whether it be CrossFit or Jiu-Jitsu, it's like, man, this is really cool. These are just
Yeah.
a lot of people that are just trying to be their best at something, but generally that's something that they're trying to be the best at has a bigger carryover to their whole life than anything. And this is just a test of it. People, the attitudes are good. Every once in a while people lose a little bit, but really it's like, some of the coolest people try and kill me daily. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So the people
Yeah.
that worry about my health the most are
Yeah.
literally trying to kill
My
me.
my best
But
friends are trying to choke me or break
yeah,
my
yeah, yeah.
arms.
So that aspects of it's good.
Now, this question actually just popped into my head. Okay, so jujitsu gyms, at least jujitsu culture for a long time, loyalty was this thing, right? You didn't want to change gyms. It was, in fact, for a long time, there were jujitsu gyms that didn't want you to drop in other places.
Yeah, yeah.
Knowledge hoarding and everything else. What is the CrossFit community like? Because there are CrossFit gyms. I know I
Yeah.
can think of at
Well,
least three in Westerville.
I think, and there's kind of two aspects to this, I would say. So jujitsu is now, I think it's an open culture, at least locally, my experience of it. I went on some vacation, dropped in some places,
Absolutely.
and that was fine. I think traveling and going to places is good. It doesn't do much except make me miss Westerville, frankly, because I think we have one of the nicest places I've ever seen. And some of these places, I'm like, you don't have a mop and you don't have a shower here. I don't want to pick up anything. I think I'll go someplace else. But in at least most hobbyists, like we say training, but to a guy who has spent his adult life professionally training people, whether it be a kid for high school or adults for a different sport, we're not training. We're just coming to the gym and we're going, oh, I guess we're living. And this is not really a criticism. I hope people don't take it this way. We're not like, this class is this class is this class is this. And it's kind of, and the instructors will follow progressions for a couple days, right? But you're not training unless there's like a date or an understanding you're competing or preparing. You're kind of just playing jiu-jitsu, and that's okay. A lot of the best technique is learned in play, and I think that's a valuable aspect of how to learn motor patterns, moves, whatever you want to call them. But in CrossFit, we're training, right? Hopefully. So CrossFit, definition wise, is constantly varied functional movement at high intensity. And what I say is it's constantly varied. Okay, we're going to mix it up because it gets boring if it's not. And we think you should be able to do this broad range of things. And the best way to train you for this broad range of things is to do a broad range of things. Functional movement, meaning we're going to do things that look like you should do in life, right? We're going to squat. We're going to lift things overhead. We're going to pick things up off the floor. We're going to fall to the floor. We're going to get up. We're going to grab a bar. We're going to pull up. Look, that's getting up and over things. Recently, I started training people into their 80s. And when I say to you, we learn to pick things up off the floor, that doesn't sound like, oh, that's not that big a deal to me. But when you're 88, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
A bag of mulch is a thing to tackle, right?
Mm-hmm.
Having to buy smaller amounts of groceries because you don't have the stamina to carry 10 bags up the stairs is a little different mindset than we're in. But anyway, constantly varied functional movement at high intensity. The intensity is just the clock or the weight. It's just the way we measure it. But truly, it's the community. That you're not going intense unless you're trying to compete with somebody. And to say competition is kind of has a negative connotation, I call it kind of co-opetition, right? We're cooperating at pushing ourselves harder. And nobody in CrossFit's getting choked out. Nobody's,
Right.
There's no defense in CrossFit, so to speak, right? So it's very progressive. Like today, we kind of finished up a big long training cycle because we had an athlete at the games and she trains right along with everybody. We finished that up and kind of played some CrossFit last week. We weren't too focused. And now we're kind of doing some reevaluation so we can see how strong they are so we know where our weaknesses are. And then what I'll do is I'll take all that, I'll look at everything, I'll figure out what the game plan is moving forward, and I'll make a plan of what people should do, in what progression they should do it, so that we can build the base.
Yeah.
And then we narrow, right? Just like the pyramid in jiu-jitsu. And so in those environments, when you get a client or an athlete and they're training with you, it's not trying to be a control freak, but just you want to do our program so you can progress to our program. If you want to do a competition or go to the gym with your buddies, that's fine. Who cares? Everybody, CrossFitters are just regular people like jiu-jitsu practitioners. They're traveling, they have busy jobs, they're dropping to these gyms and everything. Um, so that's where I think it doesn't happen as much. Now that's the kind of the strength coach exercise sciencey definition, I would say, comparing the two. Now the business owner's part, CrossFit's in a different place than it was early. When I started back in 2008, there was a couple gyms locally. There wasn't much, and we were all buddies. There wasn't this kind of scarcity mindset. CrossFit was more of a, I don't want to say more of a community because that's not the case in all situations. It was more of a community with other gyms. We were all like, we were just pumped if somebody knew what we were doing, right?
Yeah.
If you were like, oh my God, you got the Reebok, you're a CrossFitter. Oh my, it was like going to Russia and meeting an American. You would be like,
Yeah.
oh, you're safe. You're like me. You're crazy. Let's do this. Does your box have weights? I don't call it a box, by the way, but whatever. And we all played together. Some of the local CrossFit gym owners, we'd throw down about once a month, go. And I can remember we didn't even have, Rogue wasn't even what it was then.
Yeah.
So I remember going to a buddy's gym and going, okay, so you got a bar. We don't have another barbell. I think I'll do it with a stone. You know what I mean? So we're just kind of sharing and making it up and figuring it out. And in that time, it was very community based. I mean, I think some of my members have said, man, I know you need more members, but I don't want anybody to know about it. This is a super cool secret. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
Secrets out.
yeah. And now, I mean, it's a business. I own a CrossFit gym, and most people know what that means or have some connotation of what that means. You know what the place looks like. You're like, he probably does thrusters, pull-ups, and he probably does his fake pull-ups or whatever people think about CrossFit, right? I can do more real pull-ups than anybody too. So
Yeah.
I'll take that bet with anybody. But so it's in a different spot. And I think as there's more gyms and there's more people doing CrossFit, and there's a lot of public misconception, frankly, about a lot of it. And there's competition for things like jiu-jitsu. I mean, some people are like, man, I can work out on my own in my garage and I'll pay for jiu-jitsu. I don't, maybe I would like CrossFit, but there's a budgetary thing there.
Sure.
It's simple. And I think we're both equally as valuable as we should. I wish people would maybe not buy a 6-pack every week and instead reinvest it in their health, as well as their fit, as well as their training skills.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I think that's a little different now. One of the things I really picked up on quick, and that is both when Gracie was at its old place where I started and where it's at now. I'm really thankful I got to go to that old place just so I can at least say, even though it was a year, I got to be one of the guys at the old place. It's so much like vibe-wise, it is so much like early CrossFit.
Yeah.
It is so like, we just didn't have podcasts then.
Right.
It was like Facebook just popped up.
Yeah.
We didn't have, what I mean? It's so, it feels like, for me, who's been in it like 18, I mean, I've been doing CrossFit almost 20 years, but I've been doing it professionally like 17, 18 years. And those early years, not just because I got gray hair and I'm looking at the old days and whatnot, but the community feel, the like, I mean, we got people traveling a good distance to go to Gracie.
Yeah.
Right? And that used to be me. I mean, it was, now everybody's in about a 3-mile radius. It used to be like, oh yeah, cool. You live in Reynoldsburg? You live in Newark? Yeah, I'm better. You should drive here.
It's
And I
actually,
think,
go ahead.
yeah, go
It's
ahead.
actually kind of funny because as you were talking about, you feel like jiu-jitsu right now is like early CrossFit days. But like, I took my first jiu-jitsu class in 2004, and in those days, you had Gracie, Ohio, and there was a Japanese jiu-jitsu place in Hilliard, and there might have been one more, maybe. But sometimes I wonder if I'm living in a bubble, right? Like, I feel like everybody knows what jiu-jitsu is now. There's gyms all over the place, and people know. But I also wonder, like, am I just in my own bubble where all my friends do jiu-jitsu? So we're just talking about, so we assume everybody does.
Well, I think kind of, and this is, I just had a big weekend that built over 6 months, essentially, and a lot of emotions and everything about it. So I've had a lot of time to reflect on kind of my career and all that stuff relative to CrossFit and everything. And I think all these fitness communities are important. I mean, the most powerful thing you need to be healthy and fit is community, family, whatever you call it. And
Tribal.
wherever you get that, it's got to be that first. You can't isolate yourself. We are built for connection. I joke with people. I go, I'm literally paying people to squeeze me. Like this is, I have a need for connection here. Right. And, so there's that. And that happens in the yoga studio. That happens in the bodybuilding gym sometimes. That happens in a CrossFit gym. I think things like Jiu-Jitsu and CrossFit, I do think it happens more because I think we unite under challenge, right? Like, we all,
shared
I like to
struggle.
say, and I've heard this before, 9/11 sucked, but 9/12 was like, damn, I'm in America. Everybody was, we are one. We
Amen.
put it down, red, blue, whatever. No, we are red, white, and blue. And I'm not trying to say, I'm just trying to draw a comparison, not trying to, it's the same thing, but there is that. It's like, man, that WOD sucked. That was horrible. And we're like, that Darce, dude, no, that sucks. Don't do that again. But we kind of bond over that.
Yeah.
Right. And that bond keeps us coming back. And if we keep coming back, that's how we get better and we get healthy and we get all those other things. And I think when I compare Jiu-Jitsu to CrossFit, it has been around a long time. I think what I mean is when I started CrossFit, it was kind of like everybody's dirty little secret. Hey man, I don't want people, I want people to know about this garage because I want you to help you out. This is awesome, but I don't want more people that aren't cool. That was kind of my referral program, right?
Yeah. You got to have a password to get in.
And, Jiu-Jitsu, I think when I hear some of the black belts that are a little bit more my age or the people that have been there a while, and they say things like, yeah, we used to go full bore. We used to kill everybody. We used to choke everybody. Oh, you're a wrestler. We're going to break your ankle. Let's do, you know what I mean? And that was kind of how CrossFit was. We're like, oh, you think you're fit, huh? I bet you throw up in 5 minutes. You know what I mean? And that's not the way to help people.
Right.
That's not the way to do it. But we broke a lot of things to figure out how to heal them, I think. And I think it was just good timing and good kind of I don't think it was purposeful marketing. I think it just happened. CrossFit was so counterculture. And then the CrossFit Games happened, and it's all like all these beautiful people are doing crazy things, and it just progressed and it blew up. And I think Jiu-Jitsu's about to see similar growth.
Wow.
I think there's going to be, now I think becoming a practitioner at a level that can not run a business, but that can teach is different. But there'll be some business guy that's like, that guy's good. He can teach. He'll do my curriculum. We're going to run this academy.
Yeah.
And I think it's ready for that. Cause I think it's great. You know what I mean? It's like, no, people need this.
Mm-hmm.
They need more opportunities for real connection with other human beings than aren't of their choosing. You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of like, I don't know who I'm scrapping with on the daily, but I'll give them my best, or I'll try and give them my best look because I want them to be better. And I would never want one of my friends to get hurt in an altercation. And it's kind of the same in the gym. It's like, all right, well, if we're going to do this, we're going to go hard because that's what I think you should do. Or no, I don't think you should go hard. Today is a light day for you. Here's what you do. And anyway, that's just kind of my.
Well, we're tribal people. That's kind of how I always looked at it. I mean, so I was in the Marine Corps, and within a platoon, first squad's going to mess around with second squad. Second squad's going to mess around with third squad. Always, but somebody from second platoon comes down to our platoon area. Well, now we're all united, just like 9/11. And same thing. You run into a different company, different battalion. There's always going to be those levels of rivalry. Where it just depends on which club and what level of club you're at that point.
I think I like at least what I see with it, because it does seem like it's really open. I think, at least from my experience, Jiu-Jitsu is really safe for beginners. I think I think a lot of people, frankly, should think about their own general fitness first.
Yeah.
They would get a lot more out of it. And I think they would, and maybe Rob and I need to talk and figure something out, but I think they would get a lot more out of it in the end. And I think their health would be a lot better, and they would just,
I tell you what,
you're your best person when you're your fittest person, I believe.
When I used to live in Denver, and I trained at Eastern Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. It's Amal Easton's place, but they had a CrossFit gym in the
Yeah.
Jiu-Jitsu gym. It was
Yeah.
combined, or however you want to put it. CrossFit was offered in the Jiu-Jitsu
Yeah. I
gym.
met one of the coaches I met at the event this weekend was from Brazil. And I didn't get much because I unfortunately don't know Portuguese, but his English was good enough to say,
You know, follow
"We have
Portuguese.
jiu-jitsu in our CrossFit gym. You come." So I got to
Yeah,
look up where it's at, and maybe I'm taking a Brazil trip, and I'll just train there
yeah,
for a week and get up
yeah.
by a
And
bunch
and when I
of
heard, I heard the gym was next door to
yeah,
Gracie,
yeah.
I was like, man, that's almost like at Easton. It was combined. I wonder how many people are doing both.
Well,
Um,
I think when if you're really, there's people come to jujitsu or self-defense for a lot of different reasons, and I think getting to know that, especially for a guy who just kind of was a jock pursuing sports, right, is good. But I think really, there's a lot of things that are. I think we used to say this in CrossFit a lot, or at least I did, and I think sometimes we get credit for saying, but stronger people are harder to kill.
yeah,
You know what I mean? Like just so if you're not doing something to get stronger, um, we can take that to the science part of muscle mass and
sure,
insulin depends and all that. But if you're not trying to get stronger, you got a long time before you're really going to be good enough at technique that's the path that's going to help you. You know what I mean? Like
absolutely, yeah,
I'm a pretty good wrestler and I've been at this, I think, 4 years and I think I'm going to do all right. But man, my guard isn't too good. You know what I mean?
right,
Like
yeah,
it's the passing lane, as people call it, right? Like, I almost feel better pinned on my back. I can squirm out of that better than I can with it. You know what I mean? Like with your head in a triangle. I'm like,
yeah.
I'm gonna die now. But um, so maybe that's me just baiting
I
people.
think you do well. I think we have this thing in jujitsu that, I guess it's better than everybody being super cocky, but boy, we are a group of self-deprecating SOBs.
Well, I think two things. I think you know it's good to realize, and you see this at even our instructors. I'm like, you could run through all this in your sleep. It would cost you nothing, and you're like, oh, I got caught. And you're like, you kind of got caught, but you wanted to get caught. I know, but when you can go into a room and think you're this big bad guy, you have confidence, or so many people, there's all the jokes about, well, if I see red, bro, I'm like, no, all right, well, go ahead, see how that works. But you think that, and then it's humbling, and that's good. It's I think what comes through when people are saying I suck or whatever, is just humility, and it's
Sure.
I think that's a good way to learn humility. On the other side, in CrossFit, kind of the confidence side, and I think this happens in jujitsu, but I think if you regularly show up to the gym, whether that be a mat or a barbell or whatever, and you do things you don't think you can do, pretty sooner or later, you realize, man, I can do anything.
Yeah.
You know, talking about your son earlier, it's like that's why you wanted to wrestle. We were at a different space parenting wise with that. And it's like,
Yeah.
man, because you can do anything, and these sports teach you that. But, what I
Absolutely.
mean? Or they provide environments for you to learn it. And if you're humble enough to go on a mat, you're going to learn some humility. And if you come to a gym or you do whatever, and you try and do the thing you don't think you can do. It's good to say I suck at a darce. It's not to say, oh, I can't do a darce.
Right.
Yeah, you can. Anybody can do this.
Yeah.
I like to say this to the older people's class. I go, I never want you guys picking up a bag of mulch, because you guys have earned the right to ask me to come over to your house anytime, pick that up, or ask the kid on the street. But I want you to be able to,
Yeah.
you know, and I think more people, it cracks me up when we're in the locker room wherever these guys are like 35 and they're like, oh, I'm old. I'm back. Like, you're not old, dude. I would do just about anything to feel 35 again. Like you're 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 spending money and time hurting yourself. Spend money and time helping yourself. And by hurting
Yeah.
myself, I not mean jujitsu. I mean a lot of their other behaviors, like, oh, I'm busy, just got to go through the drive-through. There ain't nothing you can get and eat in your car that you need to eat.
Yeah.
Nothing. Nothing.
Yeah.
You'll be all right. Humans have gone days without food. You can go another 10 minutes till you get home.
We talked,
You know?
Pedro Valenche talked a little bit about his Gracie diet and what he
Mhm.
eats. And one of the best, I'll call it a soundbite, was don't eat anything that George Washington would not recognize as food.
we have few options.
Right. Yeah. I mean, but so if you stick with fruits and vegetables and meats,
Yeah.
you're
I
in
think what
good
I used
shape.
to tell people, and still do to a certain point, if you can't pick it or kill it, you shouldn't eat it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I think, different people get into different diets. Oh, I'm vegan, or I'm this. And I think it's fine. You just need to consciously make decisions about what you eat, and you're probably going to be a lot better.
Yeah.
If you don't need some fix or some 75 hard or some super strict, that will always fail, man.
Yeah. That's not maintainable.
I have been I'm one of the few, this is all I've done with my life from a professional set. I have been a gym guy. I have seen every fad diet and everything come and go. I have seen the same thing named different times over decades,
Yeah.
right? Been coaching people for 32 years. 32 years I've been on a mat coaching people, or in a gym coaching people in that regard. Had a couple little side things at the time, but I've always found a way to the gym. And I think the lessons there are like, man, nothing has changed. Nothing has changed. The stuff the guys did in 1950, they didn't really know. They're just starting to do it, but they lifted heavy weights, and those were the stronger people.
Yeah.
They ate real food. They grew it, they killed it, they picked it, they ate it. And they're healthy, right? And then all of a sudden we start mass producing it. We're trying to, we're not going to go down that rabbit hole, and people think it needs to be super complicated. I can count my macros. I need to do this. Yes, you do. Do that for a little bit, so you're conscious of what you're putting in your body. So you understand, well, this is 3 days of food I'm shoving in my body, not one. You don't need to obsess over all those things. Just kind of make little improvements.
Yeah.
Just like
If
adjusting the
if you
choke.
try to reinvent the entire wheel in one shot, you're setting yourself up to fail, I think. I
Yeah.
think changes, especially wholesale changes, need to be done incrementally. You can't go from a McDonald's diet living on the couch to, hey, I'm going to train 5 days a week and I'm doing 75 hard and I'm
Yeah.
total carnivore diet.
Yeah. And all that. It's like, all right, that's going to work for a little bit. You want to lose 20 pounds right now and then gain it back? I mean, we've all seen that thing on Netflix. It's like a documentary on The Biggest Loser. And man, some of those people are like 5 times bigger than they were.
Yeah.
Right. And I never really got in that show because I always thought it was I was like, why don't you celebrate the everyday people that are doing it every single day?
Yeah.
And they keep it off. I have people that have completely reclaimed their life.
Mm-hmm.
I have a client who's 75, I think. She was a teacher, never been in shape her whole life. And she retired, said, it's about me now. And she's gone. She wants to go to the CrossFit Games next year. I got a friend who is fitter than anybody I know, and she's 60 years old. And it's just day in and day out, day in and day. It's not fancy anything. It's not like secret squirrel program or, I saw this on Instagram. It's just the simple stuff is sinister. The same thing as I think when I watch some jiu-jitsu seminars, I'm like, oh, that's the same headlock Mr. Schultz taught me in 7th grade. Looks like that worked.
Yeah.
I mean, like, okay, you can grab clothes now and I won't get in trouble. And I go there, but a lot of that, like the standing stuff, is kind of the same. Where people are like, oh, do you have a judo background? I go, no, but I studied judo videos to learn how to throw humans because it looks like they like to hit people with the earth too.
Yeah.
So I think, it's the
It's
same
one of the things
thing
I've enjoyed about coming when I switched to Gracie, Ohio. There's more wrestlers at Gracie, Ohio than there are at Chitwood.
Well, I am proud to say, I think part of that is because Westerville North has been producing a lot of wrestlers.
There you go.
We used to get 70 kids on the roster, which is insane in a sport that kind of is dying, but there's a lot locally. And Ohio is kind of a hotbed in general. There's a lot of good programs.
Ohio has so many good athletes.
And in the area, I mean, Ohio's kind of like that hotbed. I mean, I don't follow football recruiting well, but I know for a while, kind of the Floridas and the Texases were big. Ohio is that place. Ohio, Pennsylvania. These are where and frankly, it's because a lot of people got a crazy old dad like me who's like, you're going to go wrestle, son, or whatever it is. But it is a family cultural thing. It's a little different type of martial art.
I grew up in Colorado, and and I grew up around. I played some football and basketball, baseball. The first time I went to a high school football game when I moved to Ohio, my jaw hit the floor. I was like, these guys would have killed us. Just
Yes.
absolutely wiped
Well,
the
you
floor. It
guys
was,
had mountains and skiing and all kinds
yeah,
of other fun stuff to do. We
yep. We were
didn't.
doing other things. Yeah,
We had humidity.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And that's the truth. We, obviously, I don't think that there's a ski team in Ohio that would keep up
No,
with any of us Colorado kids.
no, I don't think there's a ski team in Ohio.
No, they have ski clubs, but
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
I was on my actual high school ski team, and we competed
Yeah,
against other high schools and competed state and in those things. Um, you know,
that's cool.
it totally different, obviously different place, but the football and the wrestling here is ridiculously good. Yeah, it's impressive that the kids that are coming from this
And I
part of the
think
country.
that wrestling is also. I think I grew up in the kind of, and I think he's great. He's amazing. I'm glad he did it. I'm not trying to talk bad about it, but in the Gable grind era, right? Conditioning is a weapon.
Yeah,
Pace is a weapon. If I move fast, you get tired. You're not strong. I'm strong. You're done. Grind, grind, grind. Weight cutting is in I think, a more healthy place than it was when I was coming up. People
yeah,
know how you can diet down, you can do it. And then really as of late, over the last maybe 10 years, the technical aspect of like we are now, I think the US is probably one of the best countries in the world, and we are competing at a much higher level with the Iranians and the Russians and all the Russian diaspora, or wherever it's called, all the Russians that move to all the other countries they compete against us with. But
yeah,
and it's because a lot of it's a new style. I mean, it's a new training style. I think when you grow up in that like grind era, man, the coach would put thumbtacks on my knee pads so I wouldn't stay on my knees. Right. You'd not do that now. But also it's like I was talking to a wrestling coach's mom who's talking about their daughter who's raising. So there's women's wrestling now, which is awesome.
yeah,
But it's not about when the kids are little, there's so many guys, and I start to see the jiu-jitsu tournament. I'm like, dude, stop. Who want to turn their 9-year-old into a little killer. Well, we'll make
yeah,
him tough and he'll do it. I'm like, yeah, dude. And he's going to meet a girl at 13 and all this is going to go to waste or whatever. Or he's just going to decide he likes Legos or something else more. And that's great. You
yeah.
will love, you want your kid to sing their own song, but that's not as much, that's harder to find in the wrestling world now, because I think parents know, man, we're going to try this sport. We're going to do it. He's going to do it, because they're not really going to be good until they have the athletic tools to be good.
And
Right.
and
And
no amount of
13-year-old may have that. They may not have hit puberty yet, and it doesn't matter. You know what I mean?
at least
If
in
they
the
love it, they'll be good.
in the football world, what I saw was a lot of the kids that were very good in middle school, they were already done growing, and
Yeah.
they don't do anything beyond then.
I used to say this in wrestling. Puberty is the best PED a kid can get. And
Yeah,
when you see, like, I would always have a dad that like, you got to show him how to stop that move. And I'm like, number one, did you see that kid?
yeah,
He had hair all over his legs.
yeah,
And he had a little dirt on his lip that I think might have been a mustache.
yeah,
And he had real muscles.
yeah,
Your son is a year younger, which is like light years behind in that grade.
yeah,
That kid didn't use good technique. He's just 10 times stronger than your son. Just
yeah.
love your son, feed your son. Maybe we talk about lifting weights in the off season, and we
Well,
could
and
talk some
that's
technique, but it's different. And
burnout is a big problem in youth sports.
Mhm.
I studied this a bit in college.
Mhm.
Kids that specialize too early tend to get burnt out on the sport that their dad is grinding them to play.
Yeah.
And then they don't want to do it, and then they quit. And it's unfortunate because, frankly, and the statistic is old now, but I can't remember which Super Bowl it was, but it stuck with me. Of the 106 players on the two NFL rosters for the two Super Bowl teams,
Mhm.
all but two of them lettered in multiple varsity sports.
Oh, of
Now,
course.
obviously, they're great athletes and they're going to be able to play
Mhm.
multiple sports and probably be very good at multiple sports, but they didn't specialize necessarily until they were at
Right.
least in high school.
Yeah.
So let them develop, and that's only going to help them when they're developing different muscle groups.
Well, I think the more they play, I mean, there's a lot of different ways to skin the cat. And I think the athletes that have the most success, if that's even what it's about, I mean, frankly, I told you this earlier, I think the kids that take a lot of more lumps in high school and never go on, man, they maybe get a lot more out of the sport than the kids that smash everybody. And it's probably similar for jiu-jitsu. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of high school wrestlers. I got news for you. If they decided to start competing in jiu-jitsu at the teen level, it wouldn't be hard for them.
Right.
It would not hold their attention.
Yeah.
Right. And some of that's because they're just physically more than any of those kids are going to handle, no matter what the technique is. But I think the most gratification I've had as a parent, I have adult kids now, you know, they're local, but house, is when you see your kids sing their own song, man, that's special. And if you tell them what their song is all the time,
Yeah.
sooner or later they're going to go, no, I want to do something different. And you're kind of robbing of them to figure it out. And I think when you know, sometimes my son does jiu-jitsu, and he was a very good wrestler in high school, college. And when I first saw him on a mat, it was like I saw a little spark of that little kid light up. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
I hope he loves this, you know. And it's the same when I see my daughter doing some of her things, and that's really, I think, what those people are robbing themselves of, because they want to say their kid was a district, state, national champ, whatever. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, you're not going to get to any of the, you're not going to really get to see how good you are unless you love it. And if you don't love it, you won't do the really hard stuff you got to do to really be a champion. You know what I mean? Even on the CrossFit side, I remember people winning things. They were fully committed, but they also loved it because they knew we loved them. Their friends were there. You know, going to the gym at that level for those people is sometimes 3, 4, 5 hours a day. Man, you better love it, because if you don't love it, nobody gonna give you enough money to do it. This isn't football or basketball or baseball. You know, this
Right.
isn't one of the big three sports. This is a thing you do because you want to do it, because you want to see how good you can get, because you want to see what you're made of. You want to challenge yourself. That's all grappling. It's really fitness too. But and I think sometimes when those people are just, they're missing out on what their kid could be really awesome at,
Yeah.
because they want this, they wanted this, or whatever. So
Yeah. I like that analogy of watching your kids sing their own song.
yeah.
And frankly, kids are wired when they're teenagers. This is a biological thing. Pardon me one second, I got a cough. They're wired to think that their parents are idiots from the time they hit
Yeah.
actual puberty till, I think, probably at least 25.
Yeah, I think I told my sister this. I saw a card. I remember I was 27. I saw a card that was like, I can't remember the exact language, but it was like, I wish I was younger when I realized my dad knew all the solutions to my problems. You know
Right?
what I mean?
Yeah.
I was like, man, I kind of wasn't listening for a long time, and now you're like, oh.
Well, on the opposite side of that coin, they say hire a teenager while they still know everything.
Yeah.
So,
I like working with teens. Sometimes it's good to be around someone who knows it.
I loved coaching teenagers. I
Yeah.
coached football at multiple levels.
Mhm.
And I think my favorite age group to coach was actually middle schoolers.
Yeah, me too.
You get these kids, and I bet you see it a lot of wrestling too. You get these kids that maybe they're not a cool kid. Maybe they were kind of a loner, not part of any
Yeah.
teams, never played sports. Maybe they come from broken homes or bad situations at home, and they get into that team, and they're quiet when they're first there, and they don't know what they're doing. They have no clue how to play whatever sport this is. But
Yeah.
then week by week, day by day, through the whole season, you see them become part of a team. You see them grow. The growth that you can see in a 7th grade season of football for a kid, especially if they haven't had like male role models or you know, and I'm sure it's the same with girl sports. I just haven't coached those. I can tell you this. I remember all my coaches from when I was in middle school and in high school. I remember those
I
days.
appreciate that age because they're so eager, not just to learn, but to kind of, you say do it and they're going to go do it.
Yeah.
School, you got to convince them a little bit more, and they're you know, they do know more.
Yeah.
Like they know, I mean, some of these kids this time, they do know more than you, but they don't necessarily know more in life.
Same thing
And
in
they're just
college.
very eager to please. And it's kind of, I think, that team thing you're talking about, what is that? That's the same thing you talked about in the platoon. That's the same thing I'm talking about with community. That's the same thing. And and a lot of kids, it becomes their identity, not because they think they're going to make it to the NFL or whatever that because they're in the now. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? That's sometimes the hardest thing to get teenagers to realize is there's life beyond now,
Hmm.
and that's who their friends are. That's who their family is outside of the house. That's who knows that the girl broke up with them and they're sad. That's who knows that they got to go home and tell dad that they got a bad grade or whatever it is. And those relationships get formed. I came back to Westerville, Ohio, and coached wrestling for 20 years with who? Wrestling buddies.
Yeah.
Didn't go to another school. I went to a place with my buddies that have been beating me up since I was 12 years old.
Yeah.
Um, and some of that is that's community. I could have gone to I could have moved to any city, any city in Columbus, and kid could have wrestled, and that's fine, or not, or whatever. But I chose to kind of come home, and some of that's related to that kind of tribal thing we're talking about.
Yeah.
And I think so anyway, yeah,
Well, it helped you make a transition from, one phase to another. Guys getting out of the military have to transition into being a civilian. And what
yeah,
are you going to be now? And
yeah.
football players and wrestlers have to transition and figure out what are you going to be now.
Well, we see a lot of it in CrossFit.
Yeah.
People don't miss the workouts as much as they miss the locker room, right?
Yeah.
And because it's like those are the people that get you through the workouts you should do. You should eat better, and you should work out. You should do the really hard thing that you don't want to do that you're hard about. You're having a hard time get to, but you're going to do it because you got people pushing you. We can do a lot of things. Sometimes you got to go off on your own and you got to do some stuff, but we are wired for connection.
And I'm sure that the parallels are there. As far as the parallels in building your locker room culture and building
Mm-hmm.
your community within your CrossFit gym or a Jiu-Jitsu gym, how do you work on building those things besides letting it happen organically?
Well, it doesn't always just happen organically. I mean, so there's the fitness side of it, which is trying to bust your butt to make the best program over time so that it can that there's steady challenges that build to bigger challenges. So people can see the story we're telling or the things we're working toward. Um, Frankly, so they can go, okay, I got to make it Tuesday. I got to make sure I make the Tuesday workout because that's when we're working on that thing and I want to do that. So it's communication. Um, and I think there's a thing when I talk to my coaches when I'm changing the young coaches, you got to hook them before you pull them. And that's kind of fishing time. When they know you love them, man, you can send them through a brick wall.
Okay.
You got to know you love them first. You got to hook them,
Yeah.
right? And you got to, when they come in, you got to show you care about them. You got to remember their names. You got to remember kind of some of their things they're dealing with in their life or just, joint issues, or I can't do this because of that. Um, you gotta have some fun. You can't just train adult people like they're high school wrestlers because they won't put up with it.
Right.
I mean, you can't yell at them. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it's like sometimes you got to be the mad dad, and sometimes you got to be the good guy. But
That's why recruiters in the military don't recruit 40-year-olds.
yeah, exactly. But you got yeah, you know what I mean?
Get away from me, guy.
So you gotta, and everybody that means something different. Some people, I think as a CrossFit coach, the advantage we have, I think this is probably similar for jiu-jitsu instructors and wrestling coaches, is we get to see you at like your most fun thing. I got a lot of stuff to do today. I do enjoy my job. I enjoy seeing my clients. I know about an hour I'm going to get to coach. But kind of right now, the thing I needed after 2 weeks is I needed to get on the mat, need to get beat up, need to try and beat somebody up. I need to go to my place and start my routine so that I can feel like I'm making progress in things that are important. And then I needed to go to my gym because all those people are my friends.
Yeah.
It is my community, right? It's part of it. I just have everything. And I think, what the question was, but I
Question
am
doesn't
52.
matter. I like where you're going with it.
But you're doing you gotta hook them by a good program with good stuff. I mean that, but they're not. That stuff's everywhere, right? If you got a decent brain and know how to use AI and stuff,
I
you
was
can
gonna
kind of
say
figure out a
ChatGPT
decent
will tell me
workout
how
program,
to put a wad together.
right? And I don't. I've looked at it, and sometimes, like, I will tell you it is wrong on some things, or at least wrong based on things we have learned, and that's not just a science stuff. That's 30 years of building and breaking people I have learned, right? I
Yeah.
don't think ChatGPT is your best answer,
Yeah.
but it's really not that hard to just work out. You should care enough that you pursue that to get better. You should measure what you're doing. You should know how long it takes you not to run your best mile, but you should generally know. And from a self-defense standpoint, I would say you should know how to run 200 meters,
Yeah.
right? I think that's reasonable.
Yeah.
Like that's both from a health and safety. You know, if your house is on fire and you're going to leave, you should get away from it as fast as possible.
Yeah.
Maybe you don't need to run 200 meters, but if you can run 200 meters,
Well, if you're
50 is
being
not
chased
that.
by a bear, you don't have to be the
Yeah,
fastest. You just can't be the slowest, right?
that's
You
exactly.
got to be
I
able to
used to
run.
say that hiking with my sister. She got
Yeah.
mortified, but I was like,
Yeah.
I've never been slower than you, Kim. I'm fine. Why would I be worried? But so I think that's kind of it in a nutshell. I think you got to connect with them. You got to talk with them enough to know who they are. They're not just a credit card number and a body. They're a human being, and um, they may be a different human being in the gym than they are outside of it. But you got to try and get to know them both. Um, and then you got to have some social stuff. You got to have some competition. I do believe. I kind of put that down. I really think I as a coach, we do need to push people to compete.
Yeah.
Whatever that means, it's different for other people. That can mean going to an open mat and going hard and making sure you're challenging yourself. For some of the upper belts, it seems like, okay, I'm not going to do the stuff I'm good at because that's not competitive. I'll smash everybody. I need to work on this position. But I do think people need to be pushed to compete. And then I think they got to have some fun, some celebration. I just went through 4 hard days of CrossFit coaching, whatever that means, in a noisy environment, and after kind of a 6-month buildup. And the thing we were planning was, how are we getting all the gym people together to celebrate and to hug her and let her know we love her and everything. And we had a dinner, and it was her whole family, and it was great. And then we have people watching at home, having
Watch
having their
parties.
friends over to their house
Yeah.
and watching, celebrating. And I come to the gym and they're asking how's she doing, and that's not just because of one person. That's a community of people who
Yeah.
look like I think it's, I do a jujitsu tournament and some of my gym friends come and watch. And I'm like, at first I was like, this is crazy. You don't need to do this. They're charging you money to
Right.
get here. I'm not worth,
Yeah.
don't pay money to watch this old man beat up another old man. But they show up because that I don't know, they're great people, but they're supportive, and that's what you do,
Yeah.
and that's what you do in the community. Do it, and maybe it's because I, share it on the other end, but I give as good as I get, I guess. But that you got to have fun things for them to celebrate. You gotta challenge them and push them, right? And you got to let them know that you're there for them. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I think some people go, "Oh, are you a CrossFit instructor?" I'm like, no, that sounds so like I'm not an instructor. I mean, I may instruct you. I'm a coach. That means more than that. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, there's members that are not coming to my gym anymore that I still see in public and I still care about them. I'm still happy. Some of the things I'm proudest of in my 18, 20-year CrossFit career is it's the relationship. It's got nothing to do with the fitness, man.
Yeah.
I'm to the moon with how my friend did this weekend, but it's really the fact that I get to be your friend. That's way cooler. And other people that met their wife there and now they have kids and all these great things. It's like, I have to be part of that. That's, you know what I mean? That
Yeah.
I think the key to community and coaching is knowing that that's the real reward. In the end, you're going to be, you, I've had, um, hundreds of relationships with great people that have gone on to do so many fascinating, great things. Um, and I'm not trying to take responsibility for it, but it feels good. I've got a guy that used to coach for me that now is competing on the highest stage and doing great things. And I can remember when he was just a really fit dude that didn't know how to move a barbell, and now he's teaching weightlifting. You know what
That's
I mean?
awesome.
And and then I got other people that now they have independence. I had this woman come up to me and said, "What are you doing today?" I go meet with my financial planner. And I go, "Why is that?" She goes, "'Cause I think I'm going to live longer than 80. I'm going to need more money."
Yeah.
Right. And that's because of the hard work she's putting in the gym. And she's 100% serious.
Yeah.
Right. She's
Yeah.
like, "I think I'm going to need
She's
more
literally
money."
lengthening her life because of
When she retired, she, she was sick, overweight, not healthy, and had a very high stress job, and then left. And now she's like, "Wow, I didn't think that I was gonna," you know what I mean? And that's a pretty powerful thing. So I can do that at 75, man. I think people at 35 can do a whole lot better. You know what I mean? It's like, um,
yeah.
you know, medical science is advancing pretty good, but it's never going to be easy. They're going to find ways to kind of medicate and limp you on. You want a good quality of life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's one of the things that's most refreshing about CrossFit right now is they're kind of coming out and saying it. I think for a while we were very bombastic, very antagonistic with our marketing, and we got a lot of people that way. And then it kind of slowed people down. Like we got through that first 20%, and then the early adopters had it, and everybody else was like, "Oh, we don't like these guys. He's saying bad words and making hard workouts and telling me I'm not squatting low enough, and I'm going to go over here where people tell me I'm awesome."
They serve
And
pizza.
then we kind of got into this. I think we softened up our messaging a little bit, and we said,
Okay.
"Yeah, you can do that's good. It's good. It's because you're doing something, right? So you get your steps in. That's all you need to do." Like, and and then what we know now is it's like, look, man, this is pretty much the solution to most of the physical ailments that in our culture, at least in modern America, are facing, right? They're sick, chronic disease is going crazy, our food is bad, and you can say you're going to go to an aerobics class or whatever, and for some people that works great, but it's not everything,
Yeah.
right? And it has a little dose of community, and for some people that's okay, but it's like, no, man, like you need to get off the couch, off the carbs. You need to kind of pay attention to what you're eating, and you need to do something hard every day. You don't need some health hack. You need better habits. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like you don't need to, um, and hard's relative, but and if you can afford it or you're interested in it, go find a good trainer or CrossFit coach or similar strength that's going to say, okay, here, this is your type of challenge. You and I don't need to go to ADCC and approach that challenge. That challenge is going to result in broken limbs and head injury.
Yeah.
But if we go to the master's division and we work towards it, that's a reasonable challenge for us, and we can help us focus on our diet, focus on some of our outside of the mat training, focus on the techniques we're learning, focus on getting some sleep, making sure our health is in order, making sure our family's in order. So we don't always hear that we love jujitsu more than them or whatever that joke is, right?
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? Like, and then
Well, that's
and then you can get there.
I mean, that dynamic that you talked about in changing some of the messaging, we've seen some of it in jujitsu where, I mean, back in the day, I remember, we're gonna go train jujitsu. It was, yes, the pace might have been a little higher, um, heavy metal blasting, out in the gym
Hmm.
and everybody getting after it. Jujitsu's done a good job of communicating that jujitsu is for everybody, and it doesn't mean that jujitsu is somehow getting easier or, um, has been nerfed. You have, the internet's the greatest place to gatekeep everybody. Um,
Hmm.
but you can get a 60-year-old soccer mom out on the mats and she's going to learn some jujitsu and she's going to have her journey. That doesn't take away from your journey if you are trying to go be an ADCC champ. Train, train that way.
If you want to be an ADCC champ, you're going to have to get a little bit more.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you can also get a dose of
Yeah.
humility. Say, hey, I'm going to help somebody else who is on a different journey or a different
Yeah.
stage of the journey. And I think, I don't know, I think it is kind of that equalizer. And I think the same thing happens in CrossFit gyms. Everybody's not lifting the same weight. You know what I mean? Everybody's not even necessarily doing the same movement. If really good coaching's happening, it should be nuanced a little bit based on what you can
Yeah.
do. Just like, you know, I think I hear over and over again, if I'm trying something, it's like, oh, your arms aren't long enough to do that. You would have to do it like this. Or, we're all different shapes and size, and we have kind of mostly the same things going on inside, but there's a little something different going on up here, and there's a little something different going on here. And that you got to kind of, I think with everything, you want to kind of use the minimum effective dose, right? to get what you want. Like, you don't want to, if you got a headache, you don't want to take 1,000 milligrams of ibuprofen. Maybe start out with,
Right.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, that's all you need. You want to taste a beer, you probably don't need to get out a keg and do a keg stand. That's a bit much. You know what I mean? It's all potency. And I think you gotta kind of, just like, you gotta eat your vegetables, you gotta eat your meat, you gotta eat your fiber, you gotta eat your carbs and whatnot, and your fats. The same is kind of true in the physical world. The base kind of philosophy of CrossFit is basically to work out and pursue other sports and hobbies. I think one of my locations is in the middle of a park, and I loved it being in a park because there's so much cool stuff to do here. There's the competitive side of CrossFit where you're CrossFitting and working hard for that thing, right? To be better at that thing. And then there's like, hey, why don't you just do it so that cycling and kayaking is more fun?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I like to kayak. I did whitewater kayaking in college. I don't want to do that now. Hoover is fine. I can paddle, wears my shoulders out. I remember I had a real tight back, neck, and lower back from a hard jiu-jitsu workout and a hard CrossFit workout. And I was going to go kayaking the next day, and I was like, man, maybe I don't need to do it. That's going to be a bit much. And then I did it, and I felt better because I worked it out.
Yeah.
I did some things, and had I not been doing those workouts, maybe it wouldn't have been a recovery workout. But there was people I went with. I'm like, I can't hang with you. You can't, you know what I mean? Like, we're just spinning in a circle. You can't, you don't have the physical capacity to kind of go do the stuff that's fun for me, which is okay. I can slow it down and hang with anybody, but you get what I'm saying? It's like, you should build your fitness and do something. Right. And I think, maybe that's not the same with jiu-jitsu, but I think for me, I'm trying to, and this will shock some people, I'm trying to learn things because I realize I'm not always going to be this. I'm getting stronger in some regards, but that doesn't seem like, I was pretty impressed with what I saw for 70 plus minutes CrossFit Games this weekend.
Yeah.
But I was pretty stronger younger. It's going to be hard to surpass that. you know what I mean? Like, I'm going to need to learn to do this stuff in a gentler way.
Yeah.
Now I still got demons to exercise where I want to bounce around like a crazy wrestler and make people tired, but that's a little different.
Well, it's funny, there's levels to it. I've had, a couple black belts, the general and Mike both kind of telling me, hey, you're breathing kind of hard, don't you? And then this morning, with a white belt, he's gasping for air. And I said, hey, how hard are you breathing? He's always hard. And then I said, how long are you going to be able to do that? He goes, not very long. I said, let's settle down a little.
Right.
And,
but the wrestling mentality is, I better get on a bike and hate my life for 30 minutes so that I don't ever get tired again.
Yeah.
Right. And I do think that's an aspect of it. I think, one of my favorite things is to roll with the younger, newer guys. I hate once they learn what's going on, because then it's like, oh, now I'm not so good.
No, this guy's going to be a problem in another 6 months.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Some of them, but, and I think, like, if jiu-jitsu is the only thing you do for your health and fitness, then I think you better find a way to go hard. You better find a way to get out of breath, because your heart and your lungs want you to get out of breath.
Yeah.
And if not, man, there are horrible things that happen to you. I remember I was in line at the grocery store, and this kid was diabetic, and he's a young kid, and he was clearly, finances were not in his favor. And his was full of snack cakes and sugar, and it was almost like he didn't really understand what was going on in his body. And he went to get his insulin, and he was making a choice between, he couldn't afford everything, right? And he was like, you put those away, and he actually, it was heartbreaking. He asked for less. He's like, can I just get this week or what, a smaller dose? Because that's what he could afford. I'm like, you're probably 20, 21 years old, and you're going to have this bill the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Now, you can do some things to kind of lessen it, but why would you want to head? You know what I mean?
Why are you doing things that's going to make it worse?
Yeah. Why, you are not, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying don't eat Christmas cookies or ice cream. It's my favorite thing. But right now I make protein ice cream because maybe I want to save the good stuff for other days. But like, it's like, man, just expense wise, like, why you want to head down a path that's just going to be, it's like running your car into the wall. You're going to have to get it fixed. Why do you want to do that? You know what I mean? Like, and anyway, so I do think a lot of the jujitsu practitioners that I see, there's a lot that I think they're doing something outside of the gym. They're good and their skills are good and they don't have to get that pushed. So it's like, how do you get that push? I mean, I think another black belt told me there's a lot of fat black belts because this is your thing and it consumes all your free time because you love it. And then it gets to be not that much of a physical challenge. And there's the community aspects and other things that people celebrate. And then you get kind of out of shape. And I think,
Well, that's what
it,
Robin said. He said it
mhm,
years ago, but it stuck with me. We were talking about what a good workout jujitsu is. And he said, the longer I do this, the harder it is for me to get a good workout.
yeah,
So you're getting more efficient. So if you're not having that output, you might need to get on a Peloton or.
yeah. I mean, I think I told my clients a long time ago, hey guys, if I could just plug your finger in a light socket and get you the same amount of health and fitness, I'd just call an electrician. I wouldn't go to Rogue and buy all this weights. But this is the only way we know to make really fit humans. We're going to lift a little weights, we're going to run a little, we're going to jump a little, we're going to do some of these other things, we're going to climb on things, we're going to try and have a fun, we're going to hug each other, we're going to love each other, we're going to support each other through up and down, and we're going to get real sweaty. And sometimes you're going to say, man, this sucks, I hate it. And the same thing I think happens in a mat to a certain degree. Um, I think it definitely happens in a wrestling mat because you're training them for competition.
Yeah.
So I have to progress what
Practice
they're
has
doing.
to be competition. Yeah.
A bunch of 12-year-olds going, this is how your stance is. This is how we grab a head. This is how we grab a hand. Once we do that, you're progressing it. You can't just teach random moves. They're not yet at a level to where that's going to make sense. There's a little bit sidebar there, but
That's okay.
But yeah, so yeah. So I think people need a little competition. Competition is a little bit easier with the community. Forces you to get outside your comfort zone. Push.
Well, Mitch, I'm going to say that this is a good stopping point.
About an hour.
Well, you know what? Here's the thing. I just recorded another podcast and it was over in 45 minutes, if that. So sometimes conversations are ready to go. We probably could have gone longer. But I appreciate you coming on.
Yeah.
You coming in. What days are you in this week?
This week, I might be not Tuesday night. Probably, man. It might be Thursday night, Thursday morning, or Friday. That's probably Thursday morning's my next my next gig.
I'll be there, so we'll get some rounds in.
Good. I'll be there Friday.
All right, brother. Again, this is Still Rolling Podcast. If you have not subscribed, please subscribe. Leave a comment on an episode wherever you watch it, whether it's YouTube, Amazon, or Spotify, or other sites. It's going to help the feed. It's going to help push this message a little further out into the interwebs, and maybe somebody will get something good out of it. We'll have a new episode next week. Thanks.